They say libraries are quiet places, safe places. But when I reached into the torn cushion of an old reading chair and felt a folded piece of paper with my name written on it, I knew my life was about to split clean in two. I didn't even want to be at the library that afternoon. The sky was heavy, winter gray, the kind that presses on your chest more than it hangs above you. I only went inside to escape the wind for a moment, or maybe to escape my own thoughts. Grief does that, pushes you into places you didn't plan on being. I wandered toward the older wing of the building, where the books smelled like forgotten summers and the lights hummed softly overhead. There was a single armchair tucked beside the window, worn, lopsided, the fabric frayed near the seams. It looked like the kind of chair where countless people had cried into pages they never intended to read. I sank into it, letting the silence wrap around me. When I shifted, something scratched against my palm through the torn upholstery. I reached inside, expecting a pen cap or a gum wrapper. Instead, I pulled out a small, creased note. My breath caught. Across the front, in handwriting that looked painfully familiar, was my name. My full name. For a moment I forgot how to breathe. My eyes scanned the reading room, only two other people, neither looking my way. I felt a pressure in my chest, a strange mix of fear and recognition, like opening a door you didn't realize you'd locked years ago. I turned the note over. No date. No signature. Just my name, and the faintest smudge of ink, as if someone had hesitated while writing it. Hands trembling, I unfolded the paper. And the first line made my heart stop. The first line of the note read, "I'm sorry you had to find this alone." I stared at the words until they blurred, until the letters seemed to tremble the way my fingers did. The handwriting, God, the handwriting, looked like it belonged to someone I hadn't seen in years. Someone I thought I'd never hear from again. My father. It couldn't be. It made no sense. He'd been gone for nearly a decade, leaving behind more unanswered questions than memories. And yet the looping slant of the letters, the slight downward tilt of the Y, I knew it as well as my own voice. I read the line again, slower this time, letting it sink in like a stone dropping into deep water. I'm sorry you had to find this alone. The library felt too quiet now, the air too still, as if the room itself was listening. I folded the note back into my shaking hands and pressed it to my chest, trying to steady the storm rising in me. Was this some kind of cruel joke? Did someone forge it? Or had he left this for me long before he disappeared? I glanced around, half expecting someone to be watching, waiting for my reaction. But the older man at the far table was lost in a newspaper, and the girl near the window had earbuds in, oblivious to the world. It was just me. And a message from a ghost. I unfolded the note again, searching for more, something that would explain how a letter from a man who vanished could be hiding in a library chair I had never sat in before today. My eyes dropped to the next line. A line that didn't just stir old wounds. It tore them open. The next line read, "What happened the night I left wasn't what you were told." My whole body went cold. For years, that night had lived in my memory like a cracked photograph, edges blurred, pieces missing, shadows where answers should have been. All I ever got from my mother was silence, followed by a warning, don't reopen doors that were closed for a reason. But here was my father, reaching through time, prying the door open himself. I swallowed hard, the taste of old fear rising like smoke. I was 16 when he disappeared. 16 and angry, confused, desperate for him to return, even if I never admitted that out loud. People said he ran from responsibility. Others whispered things I wasn't supposed to hear. I stopped trying to untangle their stories a long time ago. But this note, felt like someone placing a key in my hand after years of standing outside in the cold. I reread the sentence, each word sinking deeper. What happened the night I left wasn't what you were told. A tremor ran through me, not just from fear, but from something sharper, hope. As if the truth I'd been denied all these years might finally be within reach. But why here? Why a library chair? Why now? I looked at the torn cushion again, imagining his hands slipping the note inside, imagining him standing where I sat. It felt impossible. Unreal. And yet the paper was warm in my palm, real enough to make my throat tighten. There was more writing beneath the second line, folded into the crease like a secret within a secret. I hesitated. Because once I read it, there would be no going back. I took a deep breath and let my eyes fall to the next sentence. The one that would start unraveling everything I thought I knew. The next sentence was shorter, but it hit harder than anything so far. I didn't leave to get away from you. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Those 8 words pressed against every old bruise inside me. The nights I stayed awake wondering why I wasn't enough, the days I convinced myself he didn't care, the years I tried to stitch together a reason that didn't hurt. I didn't leave to get away from you. It felt like someone pulling the floor out from under me and offering a hand at the same time. I blinked rapidly, fighting the burn behind my eyes. The library around me faded into a soft blur, the shelves, the humming lights, the 2 strangers who had no idea my world was opening like a wound. Why would he write that? Why hide it? Why not say it while he was still here? My hands tightened around the note. I leaned back into the creaking chair, the cushion sinking beneath me as if pulling me deeper into the past. I remembered the last night he was home, voices raised behind a closed door, my mother's anger sharp and brittle, my father's voice low and breaking. I remembered him kneeling by my bed afterward, brushing my hair from my forehead, saying he'd fix things. The next morning, he was gone. For years, the silence that followed felt like abandonment. But now, staring at these words, I realized something terrifying. Maybe he hadn't stayed silent by choice. My pulse kicked up. If he wasn't running from me, what was he running from? The bottom of the note had another fold, another layer keeping the truth hidden. My fingers hovered, hesitant, trembling with the weight of the moment. Whatever was written next, it wasn't meant to comfort me. It was meant to warn me. I unfolded the next part of the note. The next line was written darker, the ink pressed harder into the paper as if his hand had been shaking. I left because staying would have put you in danger. Danger. The word didn't just surprise me, it frightened me. It didn't belong in the narrative I'd carried for years, the one where my father was flawed, irresponsible, maybe even selfish. But danger? That shifted the entire weight of the past. My breath trembled as I read the line again. Put me in danger from what? From whom? Memories flickered, small, strange things I'd forgotten or dismissed. The night the car parked outside our house with the engine running for hours. The hushed phone calls my father took in the garage. The argument with my mother that ended with her whispering, "You promised this wouldn't touch our child." My stomach twisted. All those moments I thought were just part of growing up. Maybe they were warnings I didn't know how to read. I pressed the note against my knee to steady my hands. If he truly believed I was in danger, why disappear without a trace? Why hide this message in a place I might never have found? Unless he didn't have a choice. I thought of the library again, this old wing, these forgotten chairs. Maybe he hid the note knowing someday I'd come here, to the one place he brought me when life felt too loud. The place he always said was safe. But nothing felt safe now. There was more beneath the line about danger, a longer section, the handwriting uneven, as if he had written it fast, afraid time was slipping away. I closed my eyes for a second, bracing myself. Because whatever came next would change everything I believed about the night my father vanished. I opened them and began to read. The next lines were longer, written in a rushed, uneven script that made my chest tighten. Someone came to the house that night. I thought I could keep them away from you. I was wrong. I felt the room tilt slightly, a slow, nauseating sway. Someone came to the house? The memory of that night had always been blurry, voices, shadows, tension, but I never knew anyone else had been there. My mother never mentioned it. Not once. I read the lines again, hoping I had misunderstood. I hadn't. Who came? Why? And why would approaching me matter at all? I leaned forward in the chair, elbows on my knees, gripping the note so tightly the paper crinkled. My heart was hammering now, not from fear alone but from anger at the years of silence, the half-truths, the empty explanations. If someone came to the house, why wasn't I told? I tried to piece together the fragments of that night, my mother's frantic pacing, the way she locked every door twice, the way she kept checking the window. I remembered waking up to the sound of something falling, then my father coming into my room, sitting beside me, telling me everything would be okay. He didn't look like a man who believed what he was saying. My eyes drifted down to more writing under the paragraph, each sentence feeling heavier than the last. I couldn't protect you and stay. Leaving was the only way to keep you safe. I hoped one day you would understand. Understand? How could I understand something I never even knew happened? The note was starting to feel like a doorway, one leading somewhere darker and deeper than I was prepared for. Yet I couldn't stop. Not after this. There was another section below, shorter but written with trembling strokes. A final truth he had buried beneath everything else. I drew in a shaky breath and continued reading. The next line was almost smudged away, as if his hand had hesitated or shaken while writing it. Your mother wasn't supposed to be involved. I stared at the words, a chill running through me so suddenly I had to grip the armrest to steady myself. My mother? Involved in what? She had always spoken about my father with a mixture of anger and exhaustion, never fear. Never guilt. Never anything that hinted at involvement. But the way this sentence was written, it wasn't accusing her. It was grieving her. My heartbeat quickened as questions exploded in my mind. Had she known something was coming? Had she agreed to hide the truth to protect me? Or had she been part of whatever forced him to leave? I remembered the morning after he disappeared. My mother making breakfast with shaking hands. Her eyes swollen from crying, though she insisted she hadn't slept. She wouldn't let me go into the backyard. She kept every curtain closed for a week. At night she double-checked the locks, sometimes 3 times. Those weren't the actions of someone left behind. Those were the actions of someone who was afraid. My fingers hovered over the next line, the ink darker, almost carved into the paper. She tried to keep you away from all of it. She loved you more fiercely than you knew. My throat tightened. All these years, I thought she hated him. All these years, I thought silence was her punishment for him leaving. But maybe silence was the only shield she had left. I exhaled shakily, pressing the note to my chest for a moment. Every sentence twisted my memories into shapes I barely recognized, turning familiar moments into something fragile and frightening. Beneath those lines, one final sentence waited at the bottom of the fold. A sentence shorter than the rest, as if he had written it fast, afraid he was running out of time. I unfolded it, breath held tight in my lungs. The final sentence on that fold was only 5 words. They were coming for me. My breath caught in my throat. Not asking for him. Not looking for him. Coming for him. The difference was enormous and terrifying. I stared at the words so long they began to blur. A cold pressure spread across my chest, a dread that seeped through my ribs like ink bleeding through paper. Who were they? Why would anyone come for a man like my father, a man who read bedtime stories in silly voices, who made pancakes in the shape of dinosaurs, who knew every librarian in town by name? None of this fit with the father I remembered. Yet the fear in this letter was real enough to pulse off the page. I leaned back and closed my eyes, letting the memories come. There was something strange about him in those final weeks, something I didn't understand as a teenager. The late-night drives. The constant checking over his shoulder. The day he made me promise, out of nowhere, that if anything ever happened, I should go somewhere public and safe. I always thought he meant emotionally safe. But maybe he meant physically. When I opened my eyes, the library felt different. The quiet wasn't comforting anymore, it felt watchful. Heavy. As if the truth in this note had changed the air around me. My hand trembled as I turned the paper over. There was more. A final section written in hurried, slanted strokes, ink darker, sharper, almost desperate. Like he knew he had only moments left to finish. The lines weren't neat like the others. They curved, dropped, rushed across the page as if he was writing with someone pounding on a door behind him. The kind of writing that comes from fear, or love, or both. I steadied myself, drew in a slow breath, and let my eyes fall to the next words. And that's when I realized this note wasn't just an explanation. It was a warning meant to reach me years later. The next line was longer, but the handwriting was jagged, rushed, almost panicked. If they ever find you, they'll use you to get to me. My entire body went still. I reread the words slowly, my pulse thundering in my ears. Use me? For what? My father wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. He didn't have enemies, not that I ever knew of. He fixed things for neighbors, volunteered at the community center, brought home stray animals even when my mother warned him not to. Who would want to use me to reach someone like him? I pressed my thumb to the edge of the paper, grounding myself in something real. The note trembled. Or maybe I was trembling. For years, I had imagined hundreds of reasons why he left. None of them, none, had ever involved danger that could reach me. That could still be reaching. My gaze drifted around the library again, suddenly alert. The old man at the table was still reading, the girl at the window still lost in whatever music filled her headphones. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was wrong. And yet my skin prickled with awareness, as if the walls had leaned in just a little. I lowered my eyes back to the letter. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't come back. The words hit like a punch, hard, breath-stealing, final. He wasn't missing by choice. He wasn't ignoring me. Something had stopped him. My throat tightened painfully. But you're old enough now to know the truth. Old enough now. As if he knew I would grow up without answers. As if he hoped time would make me strong enough to hear them. My hand slipped to my lap, the paper crinkling under my fingers. I felt 16 again, small, confused, desperate for someone to explain why my world had changed overnight. Only now, the explanation was sitting in my hands. At the bottom of the page, one last paragraph remained. One I hadn't yet read. The handwriting there was different, slanted sharply, almost slashed onto the paper, the ink heavier and darker than the rest. I steadied my breath. Because whatever was written next felt like the heart of everything he couldn't say before he vanished. The final paragraph began with a line that made my breath catch. There are things you don't remember, and things I wish you never had to. My pulse stumbled. Things I don't remember? Had something happened that night, something my mind had pushed so deep I could no longer reach it? I read on, my heart tightening with every word. When they came to the house, they didn't ask for me first. They asked for you. My grip tightened so sharply on the paper that it bent under my fingers. They asked for me? Why would strangers, dangerous strangers, want a 16-year-old kid? The memory that rose next was faint, but it was there. A man's silhouette near the back door. A voice, low, unfamiliar, saying my name. My mother grabbing my arm so hard I cried out, pulling me into the hallway, her hands shaking. My father shouting something I couldn't make out. I had buried that moment. Hidden it away. And now it rushed back like water through a broken dam. My father must have known I was remembering, even years later, because his next line cut right through me. They believed I had something they wanted. They thought you knew where I kept it. What? What could he possibly have had that was worth threatening a family? I pressed my palm to my forehead, trying to steady the whirl of thoughts. My father had always been quiet, gentle, the kind of man who repaired broken toys and rescued injured animals. Nothing about him fit the profile of someone involved in anything dangerous. Unless he had been hiding things from us all along. The letter continued. Your mother tried to protect you, but nothing we said mattered. That's why I ran. Not from you. Never from you. I ran to draw them away. Something inside me cracked at those words. The years of resentment, abandonment, confusion, all of it shifted under the weight of a truth I hadn't known to look for. He hadn't left me. He had left for me. At the bottom of the page, just beneath that confession, one final sentence waited. A sentence short enough to miss if you didn't look closely. But heavy enough to change everything again. I steadied myself and read it. The final sentence, almost hidden at the bottom of the page, was sharp, deliberate, and chilling. I'm leaving clues. Follow them carefully. My hands froze. Clues? I looked around the library again, half expecting someone to emerge from the stacks, someone with answers, or worse, someone watching me as I held the note. But the room was still, normal, silent, like nothing had happened. And yet, my entire body hummed with a new urgency. My father wasn't gone. Not completely. Not really. He had left a path, a map of words, meant only for me. A trail he hoped I could follow to uncover truths too dangerous to face head-on. I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. The thought that he had left this specifically for me, after all these years, it was terrifying. And comforting. I traced the handwriting with my fingertips, as if the ink itself could give me guidance. Each stroke felt like a heartbeat, like him reaching across time, saying, I'm still here. I'm still with you. Don't stop. Questions flooded me. Where would these clues lead? What truths had I yet to uncover? And most importantly, what danger, if any, still lingered? The note was folded carefully, almost reverently, suggesting he had hidden other pieces somewhere. Somewhere only I would think to look. I leaned back in the chair, gripping the paper, and for the first time since he disappeared, I felt a connection that hadn't existed in years. A promise that he had never really abandoned me. But hope came with a sharp edge of fear. Following these clues could bring answers, or it could bring more danger. And either way, there was no turning back now. I knew what I had to do. I folded the note, tucked it safely into my pocket, and rose from the chair. This was no longer just a letter. It was the first step of a journey that would take me back to the night my father vanished, and maybe even to him. The library felt different now, almost alive with possibility and danger. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of a page, made me jump. I clutched the note in my hand, feeling its weight, not just of paper, but of secrets, warnings, and love stretched across years. I left the armchair slowly, careful not to draw attention. The two strangers still seemed absorbed in their own worlds. Yet I felt as though invisible eyes were tracking my every movement. Was it paranoia? Or had my father's warning somehow seeped into the very air around me? I stepped out into the fading winter light. The wind cut through my coat, sharp and bitter, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing, each clue, each word of the letter, spinning in endless patterns. Follow them carefully. The urgency in his handwriting became a drumbeat in my head. I knew instinctively that my first move had to be somewhere he had loved, somewhere he had always taken me when the world felt unsafe. The local park, with the towering oak tree where he used to sit me on his lap. The small cafe near the river, where he whispered secrets about life and courage. These places were more than memories, they might hold the next piece of the puzzle. Fear and hope tangled inside me, knotted and sharp. I had always thought of my father as a man who abandoned us. Now, I understood he had never left my side. He had protected me in the only way he could, guiding me from afar with invisible threads. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and began walking toward the first place that came to mind. Each step was heavier than the last, but also somehow lighter, carried forward by the thought that I was not alone. The journey ahead would not be easy. It would test everything I believed about my father, my mother, and myself. But I had the note. I had his words. And most of all, I had the promise that somewhere out there, he had left more, waiting for me to find it. And I would. I followed the streets I knew from childhood, letting the memories guide me. Every familiar turn felt like stepping into a ghost of the past, shops I hadn't noticed in years, the scent of bread from a corner bakery, the faint hum of traffic blending with my heartbeat. The note burned in my pocket, a quiet but insistent reminder that this wasn't just nostalgia, it was a map, a lifeline. I reached the park first, the oak tree towering above, its branches bare against the gray sky. I ran my fingers along the rough bark, remembering the afternoons my father had spent telling me stories about bravery, about how fear was a compass pointing toward truth. Now, each word he had written was a compass of its own, guiding me toward answers I didn't yet fully understand. I noticed something tucked into a hollow in the tree, a small envelope. My pulse spiked. The handwriting was unmistakable. Hands shaking, I opened it, finding another note. You're stronger than you think. Keep going. Follow the path. Tears blurred my vision. After years of absence, of unanswered questions and silent nights, he was here, in his own way, leading me forward. Every line of his letters was stitched with care, love, and a warning that danger still lingered. But fear no longer ruled me. I had his words, his guidance, and his faith in me. As the wind rustled through the branches, I understood something profound. The journey wouldn't be simple. It would test me, challenge me, and perhaps break me. But it was mine. And with each step, I felt him beside me, a shadow and a light, guiding me toward the truth. Sometimes the people we love leave in ways we cannot understand. Sometimes they leave pieces behind, not for themselves, but for us, to protect us, to teach us, to guide us when they can no longer be near. Today, I held those pieces in my hands, and for the first time in years, I felt his presence, not as absence, but as a promise. A promise that even when someone is gone, love, hope, and courage can find a way to reach us, if we are brave enough to follow.